Here now to discuss the fallout from yesterday's announcement, Ted Leopold, consumer advocate attorney from the firm Cohen and Milstein. Ted, we thank you so much for taking time to be here today on America's Forum.
Thank you for having me.
Well, first things first, yet another recall. Can you tell us specifically what GM hopes to address in this latest recall?
Well, GM's issues right now are trying to ascertain all of the various issues and problems with their vehicles all around the world, and to recall those vehicles with the hopes that they'll be fixed and not cause any more injuries, not only to the values of the vehicles of those vehicle owners, but most importantly to causing injuries and deaths.
Now, as I understand it, with yesterday's recall, that brings this to a total number of 25 million vehicles recalled so far this year. You look back, I guess the last record was 21 million in 1981. So when we take a look at this, what's to blame? Design, the culture of GM, the government involvement, or all of the above?
I think all three are primarily the primary focus. It really stems from the GM engineering and the executives, if you will, that allows this atmosphere to perpetrate throughout the company for many, many years. These vehicles had problems. They knew about the problems from day one, but they still allowed them to go forward and be produced and manufactured, knowing a design change needed to occur, and they never did anything about it.
Now, changes, of course, have occurred in GM's executive suite, and when I saw that Mary Barra was installed as the new CEO, I thought in a sense that GM had gone to central casting, Ted, because lifelong employee, her dad, I believe, worked the assembly line. There she is, the picture of a very modern woman with a family. In fact, I guess Matt Lauer last week on Today asked her about balancing the roles of CEO and mother, for which he drew some criticism. As you watch the public performance of CEO Barra thus far, is there cause for concern or cause for litigation if you were contacted by some of these families?
Well, we do have several cases on this issue, and the important issue is to try and obtain a full measure of justice for those individuals that did nothing wrong as related to this vehicle defect of General Motors in a broad brush of their vehicles. She's a little bit of a catch-22. Some people say she had knowledge during her walking up through the ascendancy to her CEO position. Some people say that she didn't. She testified under oath in Congress that she did not have any pre-warning about this, but certainly the engineers at General Motors did. They knew about the problem. In fact, some of the engineers even tested this vehicle and it happened to them during their test drives, and they made a conscious, deliberate decision to disregard those vehicle defects and allowed these vehicles to be manufactured, and it caused hundreds of injuries. It's estimated, although General Motors says 13 deaths, the statistics out there say it's much more than that, into the hundreds of deaths.
And of course, yesterday, Ted, we get the announcement of the compensation fund, and people look at $1 million, $300,000. Those are pretty huge sums for American families. When you look at that effort, is that a good faith effort, or is it a type of preemptive action taken to avoid serious litigation?
I think generally it's a preventive action in order to try and avoid litigation, because one of the things General Motors is attempting to do here is try to prevent punitive damage awards that certainly is going to come down the litigation trail because of the knowledge, the conscious indifference that General Motors perpetrated on the public and their customers by allowing these vehicles to be manufactured.
Ted, you have spoken repeatedly about GM engineers knowing of these defects. With that in mind, and knowing the law as you do, can anyone at GM be held criminally liable?
Well, that's outside of the civil tort system. That is a criminal aspect that really the Justice Department has to look to. I know General Motors has made some firings along those lines, but that's really for the Justice Department to make a decision about criminal conduct. The best thing that we can do in the civil system is to have them answer in court and to be penalized financially so a full measure of justice can occur for these families.
For purposes of full disclosure, Ted, you mentioned that some of these families have already contacted you and your firm. Is there any ballpark figure about how many families may seek recourse through civil litigation?
Well, certainly the numbers that GM throws around are very small compared to what the actual numbers are. We believe that the deaths are in the hundreds and the serious injuries are into the high hundreds, if not thousands.
About a minute and a half remains, and we've taken a look at the compensation fund, and the name Ken Feinberg emerges again to run this fund on behalf of GM. Give us a thumbnail sketch of Feinberg as an attorney, as one who would administer these funds. What can you tell us about it?
Well, you know, certainly he has experience in doing this type of work, whether it's the 9/11 disaster fund, whether it's the BP oil spill fund. What we hope that will happen to those individuals who want to go through this process is that there's a fair, impartial analysis and review by his group in order that there be full restitution for these families.
I don't know if we'd call this a summation of the case, but Ted Leopold, if there's one thing you want to leave people at home with, what is the one takeaway as this case continues to unfold?
It's the conscious indifference of a major company to put out vehicles on the road that are unsafe, and as a result can affect the lives of individuals and their families.
Ted Leopold, consumer attorney, we thank you very much. It's good to see you in this setting, and I'm not an attorney, so I won't say see you in court, but I know that this story continues to warrant our scrutiny, and we hope you'll come back to update us as it continues. So you got Ted's take on the situation involving GM. What is yours? You know, with a government bailout, some have started calling GM government motors. Was it federal involvement, the culture? Your take on what has transpired at GM. You can tweet us your comments at Newsmax TV, # America's Forum. There's also email. That's right, old dependable electronic mail, our address, connect@newsmaxtv.com. And let's not forget Facebook, facebook.com/Newsmax. America's Forum will continue following this time out.